Joining us now is Dave Kaval, president of the A's. You tweeted out a video at the Golden Knights game opposite the A's game. Do you realize the brushback you would get on that tweet?
Well, I think the focus was there was a lot of energy, obviously, at that game. You know, our fans deserve a modern, state-of-the-art location to have a ballpark. We don't have that right now. We're doing everything we can to solve our ballpark issues and ensure that we get a new privately financed ballpark at the waterfront. And it's just critically important that we get to an answer as soon as possible. It's been almost a 20-year saga to get to this point, and we really need to know if we can solve it, hopefully this summer.
On the surface, Dave, this tour, it was designed, or outside opinions think it was designed squarely to create leverage against Oakland. Your response?
I think it's important to remember that this is a 20-year saga. I've been leading this for 5 years. I've put 110% into this over that period of time to get our privately financed ballpark approved at the waterfront. We need to know if it works or not, if this is a direction that the city council wants. We're hopeful that it will happen, but we don't know until we have that vote on the 20th on our plan. You
said the A's are privately financing an estimated $1 billion ballpark at Howard Terminal, but the 855 infrastructure surrounding that project has to be paid in some way by Oakland. Doesn't sound like Libby Schaaf is on board, or the city of Oakland for that matter. Is that infrastructure tab the sticking point?
Well, I think it's important to remember this is a project. It's $12 billion. We're paying for this billion-dollar stadium. We're paying for all the on-site infrastructure. And all we're saying is that some of the tax revenue that the project creates that wouldn't exist unless we build everything could be funneled back to actually repay us for what we do. And that's very common to have these infrastructure financing districts this way. It doesn't jeopardize the general fund, and the city and county and the state are going to end up ahead regardless. And so hopefully people can see it that way.
I think you're referring to tax increment financing. Is that right? And isn't that more feasible in a place like Las Vegas than the city of Oakland?
Well, it's been done in the Bay Area. San Francisco's done it on a variety of projects. They've done it on Mission Bay, where the Giants built their ballpark. They've done it at Pier 70, Treasure Island. And we're hopeful that a similar process could work here in Oakland. We got a bill passed, specifically SB 293, at the state legislature to give us more flexibility on how to do this. And we hope that it can be part of a solution, a positive solution, on that vote on the 20th.
Would the A's be willing to meet the city of Oakland halfway? Let's say infrastructure split 425 million.
Well, I think it's important to remember that we are really taking the risk on the infrastructure. We only get paid back if that infrastructure increment exists. And so we're already putting ourselves out there and doing everything we can to ensure this project happens and not putting the general fund at risk.
Dave, here's what the average Oakland taxpayer thinks. If John Fisher is worth $2.8 billion or whatever that estimate is, why can't he pay the entire freight?
Well, I think it's important to remember that all we're asking for is that the project revenues that are generated by the project could be used to pay back some of the infrastructure costs that we're making. It's a very common system. It's done all over the place. It was done in San Francisco when the Giants built their ballpark. It's done, in Southern California. This is a very common way to finance large infrastructure projects. We're not asking for money for the ballpark.
Giants got $80 million. You're asking for $855 million in infrastructure costs.
Well, but it's important to remember that the city of San Francisco built all of Mission Bay, everything that you see down there, the community lines, the train stations, the roads, that hundreds of millions of dollars they invested then, and that enabled the Giants to build their ballpark right next door. So they actually did fund those things, and it was very positive, and cities do that all the time. Remember, a lot of the things that we're talking about here probably should have been funded years ago. There's just never been any money to fund them. Our project generates the money to make all these things a reality, and that actually will help the community beyond even the ballpark district.
A worst case scenario, Dave, a deal cannot be struck in Oakland. If that came to pass, would Mr. Fisher consider selling the A's to a local group like Bob Lurie sold the Giants to Peter McGowan?
The team is not for sale. And, we have spent the last 5 years doing everything we can to make this work in Oakland. It's important to remember we're the only one of the Oakland teams that actually tried to stay. Both the Raiders and the Warriors really had their sights set on other markets at the beginning. And so we've done everything we can to make this happen. We have a great plan at the waterfront. We're hopeful that we get an affirmative vote. And so we can, make sure our ballpark comes to life. And really, we activate the waterfront in a really exciting way. And that's what we're going to stick to, and we're going to push for that on the 20th.
But if you don't, and Vegas comes to fruition, you would not consider selling to a local group to keep it in Oakland?
Like I said, the team is not for sale.
Dave, I really look forward to your next tweet.
Yes, well, keep an eye out for it. So.
Thank you, Dave.